Good afternoon again, church. I am chatting with Ben Lee from In His Steps Foundation, and I just wanted to give you a little bit more of a glimpse as we've been talking about creative ways to steward what God's blessed us with as a church family, but also dream for the future together and safeguard our future together. We want to just have a brief conversation with the experts. We know that as a church family and as pastors and elders in the church family, we have areas of expertise, but we want to stand on the shoulders of giants in a way. And I wanted to bring in Ben to have a conversation with him briefly here and let him talk to you about other ways that we can give that will safeguard the future and are of immense benefit to our membership here. So this is Ben Lee from In His Steps Foundation. And Ben, maybe we can just start by saying, what is In His Steps?
Sure, Ryan. Well, thank you. Good afternoon. Good afternoon to Word of Grace Church. It is my privilege and pleasure to have gotten to know your pastor over the last several months, to get to know your church a little bit along the way, and find an opportunity to share about who we are, what we're doing here in the same neighborhood as you guys, Northeast Ohio, and our unique contribution to the kingdom that we're all seeking to build together. In His Steps Foundation is about a 27-year-old distinctly Christian community foundation here to serve people and Christian ministries in Northeast Ohio. So by design, we are an evangelical Christian ministry for people and ministries right here in Northeast Ohio. And we have two different audiences that we serve along the way. We help Christian people give money away to ministries using some strategic tools that really only a community foundation can offer. Things like donor advised funds, helping with some trusts and estate planning, the ability to donate sometimes complex non-cash assets, the kind of gifts that if people were to walk into most churches or most Christian ministries, somebody would just throw their hands up and say, "What do you want me to do with this?" That's really our specialty. And on the other side of the coin, we help Christian ministries with their fundraising, zeroing in on that same idea of non-cash, sometimes complex, non-traditional gifts. And so we do that by managing about 75 different endowments for Christian ministries and churches and other like-minded organizations. And we also help those organizations offer their audience, their congregation, the ability to donate complex non-cash gifts. We manage some estate trusts, some other ways of funding the mission that are a little bit more complicated, a little less common than just simply walking a check down to the bank.
Oh, that's great. And sort of that's why we wanted to chat primarily here, even as we look to the future. Just for the average layperson here, what are some of the benefits of giving instead of just cash, but even out of a retirement fund or appreciated stocks or things like that? What would be the benefit for a person instead of just liquidating their portfolio and giving them the proceeds of using yourselves to make that contribution to Word of Grace?
So a big part of our work is fueled. By the way, there's a fire department across the street from us. I apologize if that's coming through. A big part of our work is built around the rather startling statistic that the average person has more than 90 to even 95% of their worldly wealth in non-cash assets. And that might sound startling, but it's probably true of me as much as it's probably true of you as you kind of think at the various pockets of ownership that you have relative to the much smaller amount that might be coming into your checking account via a paycheck or maybe a retirement check. And so if we truly do believe that everything that we own, a cattle on 1,000 hills, the earth and everything in it really does belong to the Lord, then maybe a better question for Christians is not just, well, what is 10% of my income that I might give to God? And by the way, if you are one of those Christians actually giving a 10% tithe, you're in a fairly remarkable minority, and God bless you for that commitment. But a better question for Christians is, what do I own? What is the stuff that is taking up orbit around my life that may or may not be adding joy or value to my life? And how can I think more inclusively? How can I think bigger about all that I own, all that I have, belonging to God, and possibly being deployed in response to saying yes to His leading in my life?
Yeah.
So you talked about non-cash assets. That really is one of our specialties. And one of the calling cards that we try to leave everywhere we go is built around this conviction that if any donor or congregant has charitable intent with an item, that is an item, an asset, something of value that you're thinking about leveraging to support kingdom work, do not sell the item in most cases and then give the after sale proceeds to ministry. In many cases, there is going to be a significant tax advantage of donating the item itself to charity. Let the charity sell the item and then give all the cash proceeds right to the work of the ministry. And the reason for that is because in our country, we have a lot of wonderful laws that really encourage charitable giving. But one challenging law is this thing called capital gains taxes. And the government wants to tax people on the growth in value that an asset has had in time. And so a great example of that would be an equity, a stock. Something that you own, a share maybe of a publicly traded company. Hopefully you bought in at a lower point and hopefully that asset grew in value as you held it. That's how we want these things to work. But if you had an asset that you were thinking about selling in order to give those proceeds to the church, the challenge would be that the government would then be taxing you on the earned value called a capital gains tax that stock saw during the time of your ownership. So for our part, we really want to preach a financial gospel of don't just sell the asset, donate the asset itself to a foundation like In His Steps Foundation, who's your ministry partner. We can sell the asset. We can issue you a tax-deductible charitable giving receipt, and we can send the full value of the sale right to Word of Grace Church or really any other Christian ministry that you would direct us to. And we don't charge anything for this service. As a Christian ministry ourselves, we are here to serve Christian ministries, and this is an entirely free service that we're very pleased to offer.
Wow. Yeah, that's incredible. So if I'm hearing you correct, you're saying if somebody has an appreciated stock and they want to use that as their way of blessing the church, rather than selling it and paying tax and then giving the net amount to the church, they can issue it directly to you all and have a receipt for the full amount for tax purposes, and the church still gets the full amount as well. So seems pretty win-win to me.
Everybody, it's win-win, lose. And the win is the donor, the win is the church, and the lose is the IRS in that equation.
I think everybody's okay with that. That's great. And you said that In His Steps facilitates this, but as a nonprofit, you don't take any kind of cut. Is that right?
That's right. It is one of many services that we are here to be able to serve Christian ministries, churches, Christian schools in.
That's awesome. And we're going to continue working with Ben on a number of things as the leadership of the church, just to make sure that our giving strategy and things like that are really enriching the church and beyond. But I did want to ask Ben, because this is his specialty, if there are any other things that he would like to say to church members. He's spoken to pastors, he's spoken to churches all over the place in Northeast Ohio. And I'm sure there are certain things that are always on your mind that you wish more people in churches would know. So is there anything that sticks out to you that you would say to our membership today?
One of the things that really burdens me is the way in which Christian people are constantly being hit up and solicited by really big fundraising organizations, universities, hospital systems, the orchestra. And of course, we support all of these and are glad that they are in our world doing that important work. But it's amazing to me how many Christian people I talk to, and we might have a conversation around leaving a significant portion of a person's estate in their will or bequest. And it's amazing the number of Christian people that simply overlook the church that meant so much to them in their lifetime, and instead are leaving large swatches of their worldly wealth to these other organizations, maybe a hospital where they went to 20 years ago for a hip replacement surgery. And when I ask people, why didn't you think about naming your church in your will or estate plan? The answer that comes up so frequently is, I never thought about it. I didn't know that I could, or they never asked. Because Ryan, I know how often people are being asked by other outside organizations. And so everywhere I go, I always encourage Christian people to remember to name their church in their will or estate plan. You can do that vaguely with very little instructions, or you can do it very specifically with very fine-tuned instructions on exactly how you would like to see your assets serving the church while you're in heaven.
No.
And I often tell people it's the greatest, most significant gift you'll ever give, and it won't cost you anything in your lifetime.
No.
That's an important reminder.
Okay.
Since you teed that up, I'd like to say one more thing. If your church is like mine, you probably have a number of people who are currently receiving IRA, retirement income from some of these accounts that exist to serve us in our retirement years. Well, as your people know, there's a certain age that you can get to where the government says, all right, now it's required that you have to start taking at least a minimum distribution from this retirement account. In fact, it's called a required minimum distribution. There are people who don't need this income because they have other pockets of income that are supporting them. And so the government came out with a workaround called a qualified charitable distribution. Well, you could decide to rather detour this money, not to your own personal checking account, but you could bypass you, and in doing so, save all the income tax that you would be assessed on that income and have that money go right to the church or right to any Christian ministry. And so to every retiree out there, if you're not needing the income that these required minimum distributions are forcing upon you, you can elect to detour that money right around you and have it go right to the church, right to a Christian ministry without any taxes being taken out of it. And so that's another built-in, very easy way to be more intentional about your giving. And finally, Ryan, just the last thing I would share since you asked, it's something that I said at the beginning, and that is that Christian people can be some of the most narrow, small-minded people when it comes to really thinking about saying yes to the Lord's prompting to be a generous person. And that's because we grow up in church hearing so much, thinking and hearing about tithe out of income, give out of income. But the reality is that I just want to emphasize, like I did at the start of our conversation, is that the Lord really wants all of us. And I think the Lord believes that a tithe is the starting point for a Christian, not the finish line. And so I really just want to encourage people that as you are supporting the work that the church is doing, and maybe you feel an impression on your heart from the Holy Spirit to be more generous, to do more this year, I would just encourage you to look at some other pockets of assets that may be circling your orbit, things that maybe you hadn't thought of before. Maybe there's a family inheritance that came by way of a house or a property that really isn't bringing you the joy that it once did. There are all kinds of assets that we have at our disposal, and it's possible that prior to now, the idea of using one of those for ministry never crossed your mind. But there are foundations like In His Steps Foundation and others that are here to be your partner to help you turn these non-cash assets into real dollars going right into ministry work today.
Well, that's amazing. And Ben, thank you for your time. For everybody who's interested or wants to know more, and certainly if the Lord's been laying something on your heart, we want to connect you with Ben and his team. So you can either reach out to me or one of the elders, or you can reach out directly to Ben in his steps. So we'll give you the tools to do that today even, and make sure that everybody is aware of that. And we'll continue to talk into the future about things that safeguard the future of the church, things like those endowments he was talking about, ways for us today to lay a foundation that's going to go long beyond us here for Word of Grace. But Ben, we thank you for your time today, and we appreciate all you do for the kingdom here in Northeast Ohio.
My pleasure, Ryan. As a longtime former pastor right here in Northeast Ohio, I know how important and urgent it is to get to fund the mission of the local church, and I believe in it with all my heart. God bless you guys.
Thank you.